but very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico.
The U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response.
I will fight back with dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs, and our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest trade war in history.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Well, it's no longer merely dangerous rhetoric. It is now dangerous policy. After weeks of multiple threats and near misses, the United States is officially in a painful and unnecessary Trump-triggered trade war with our three biggest trading partners. And this will have disastrous consequences for the American people in general, and ironically, Trump supporters and voters most of all. You see, at 12:01, Trump officially declared levies, 25% sweeping tariffs against Canada and Mexico, and an additional 10% sweeping tariff against China. In response, Canada and China have already officially declared their own retaliatory tariffs, and Canada in particular plans to target Republican states. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, this is disastrous. I want to play the clip from Donald Trump yesterday announcing that this was no longer a threat. This was no longer going to be, a game of chicken. He officially was planning to declare these tariffs, and they would go into effect at 12:01 today, which they have. Here's the declaration from Trump.
But so we're going April 2nd, but very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs.
And when asked, is there anything that Canada, Mexico, and China, because he also declared an additional 10% tariff on China to go along with the 10% tariff that was already imposed, is there anything these countries can do to avoid the 12:01 official tariffs? He said no. Now, in response, I want to play 3 clips that just came out of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as he declares his own retaliatory tariffs.
At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21.
So, that was the first clip I want to play of Trudeau making the announcement. Then he speaks to the American people. He addresses the American people directly.
I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper. They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth. So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these tariffs today.
And he's right. Number one, well, for a few reasons. Number one, the trade deal that Trump complains about, that he says, Canadians and Mexico, they're taking advantage of us. Well, Trump was the one who inked that deal in the first place. It's his deal, the one he boasted about when he was president in term one. Number one. Number two, fentanyl traffic from Canada into the United States is a virtual blip. Like, of all the reasons you want to punish Canada, this one makes the least amount of sense. And again, I thought that was really persuasive by the Prime Minister addressing the American people. And then he speaks directly to Donald Trump.
Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm.
Yeah. So pretty bold of the Prime Minister, and I think a great thing. I think it's honest. I think it's fair for him to refer to this as dumb. Now, I would argue he was a bit too generous with Trump by suggesting that Trump is smart. I don't believe that he is. But yes, this is pretty direct. I mean, that's going to sting for Donald Trump to be referred to, or rather actions by Donald Trump to be referred to as stupid, as dumb. But they are. I'll also point out Mexico, as far as I know, is not weighed in yet, but President Sheinbaum of Mexico says Mexican officials had a call with Trump scheduled for Thursday, and that if tariffs remained in effect, Mexico would announce countermeasures, including retaliatory tariffs, on Sunday. So China's already announced retaliatory tariffs. Canada's already announced retaliatory tariffs. Mexico is about to announce retaliatory tariffs. And I should point out, and we're going to play a couple more clips, but the retaliatory tariffs are purportedly going to target Republican states. This is from Politico yesterday. Trump's plan to impose tariffs on Canadian goods is drawing an immediate response as Ottawa responds with levies on U.S. products targeting Republican-led states, including Florida oranges and appliances from Ohio. So they intend to put the squeeze on states that support Donald Trump. And again, that's why I said at the very beginning, ironically, it will hurt Republican states, Trump-supporting states the most, even though it will hurt Americans in general, because blue states will also have to pay for this as well. But they're going to try to maximize the effect on red states, and they should. That is a politically expedient thing to do, just as if a Democrat triggered this trade war, which they never would because elected Democrats are smarter than elected Republicans, Canada should have targeted blue states in those situations. The only way to potentially get Trump to back down is by hitting his supporters where it hurts so they can hit him where it hurts. And as you know, Prime Minister Trudeau announced, I think about a month ago, maybe longer than that, that he was going to resign, right? There would be upcoming elections. And I think in a week or two, there might be elections in Canada. Well, somebody who may end up taking his place is Chrystia Freeland, who used to be the deputy prime minister and the minister of finance. And she is very explicit. She is very ruthless, and I respect it. This is what I want to play a couple of clips from her about how she intends to prosecute this trade war should it be in effect after she potentially wins the election.
Right now, this is maybe abstract for Americans, but if these tariffs are put in place, it is going to hurt Americans. Anyone who has a 401k is going to be hit because the stock market is already hurting. Anyone who needs to fill their car up with gas is going to be hit. You are going to be putting tariffs, a tax on the oil and gas and electricity that we sell you. Totally absurd. Your grocery prices are going to go up because you know what you need to grow food in the United States? You need fertilizer. And 80% of it comes from Canada, and you're going to put a 25% tax on it? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is right. This is dumb. This is utterly self-mutilating, and our retaliation is going to make it worse. Right now,
I want to play one other clip from her from that interview with Jen Psaki, in which she even specifically seems to target Shadow President Elon Musk.
well, it is great to be with you, Jen. And I am running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, because right now we Canadians have to stand up and fight for our country. If the tariffs are imposed, as Prime Minister, I will fight back with dollar for dollar retaliatory tariffs. And our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest trade war in history. An example of a measure that I will put in place as Prime Minister is 100% tariffs on Teslas. I think that should get some attention in the White House.
So yeah, she plans on hitting Shadow President Elon Musk where it hurts. Dollar for dollar retaliation. So here we are, again, official. It's no longer a near miss. It's no longer a threat. These tariffs are in effect. There's no telling how long they will be in effect. Trump could back down tomorrow, in a week, in a year. There's no telling what might happen, but we are officially in a Trump-triggered trade war, which is going to hurt disproportionately red states and the states of Trump supporters and Trump voters. It seems to be backfiring. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.